We are live now.
We are live.
Are we doing the slideshow and the audio, or we're just going into the program?
Let's play the audio for at least 5 minutes. Give time for people to gather, please.
All right. Well, at any rate, while we're waiting, we just wanted to welcome everyone to the 19th annual virtual Detroit. While we're waiting, we just wanted to welcome everyone. Annual virtual Detroit. Welcome again, and we want to welcome everyone to the 19th annual Detroit virtual MLK Day rally. This event is organized by the Detroit MLK Committee, and we are here to commemorate the 93rd anniversary of the birth of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who was born on January the 15th of 1929 in Atlanta, Georgia. I wanted to first of all salute the chairperson of the Detroit MLK Committee, Miss Dorothy Aldrich, who has been the leader of this committee for many, many years. She is a veteran civil rights and human rights and international activist. And we are honored over these last few years to have her as the leader and coordinator of the Detroit annual MLK Day event. In the introduction to this event, we want to, of course, remind ourselves the critical period in which we live today here on January 17th of 2022. In January of 1965, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., as the president of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, intervened in the voting rights struggle in Selma, Alabama, after years of work already carried out by local activists, along with organizers from the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, SNCC. These momentous efforts led to a series of confrontations with Dallas County police officers and Alabama state troopers, which culminated on Bloody Sunday, which was March 7th, 1965. By the end of March of 1965, the political atmosphere in the United States had shifted in favor of the federalizing of the National Guard to provide protection for the thousands who marched from Selma to Montgomery in search of universal voting rights. Later that year in August, the then President Lyndon B. Johnson was compelled to sign into law the Voting Rights Act of 1965. This represented the first comprehensive voting rights legislation since the era of Reconstruction during the late 1860s to the mid 1870s. And the previous Civil Rights Acts of 1957, which involved the role of the Justice Department in protecting access for African Americans to the franchise. In the aftermath of the mass demonstrations, voting registration drives, and vigorous debates on the nature of racial oppression during the year of 2020, there was a sense of a democratic breakthrough in regard to the large turnouts in states around the country against the previous administration of President Donald J. Trump. The ascendancy of the current administration of President Joe Biden and the election of 2 new Democratic senators from the state of Georgia, where voting restrictions have been well documented since the gubernatorial race in 2018. False charges of massive voter fraud by the Trump administration and its followers did not succeed in the post-election period from November of 2020 to the inauguration of the new presidency and Congress nearly a year ago. The January 6th attempted coup by anti-democratic and neo-fascist elements in the Capitol in Washington, D.C., provided a clear view of a right-wing threat to the social interests of the masses of African Americans, people of Latin American descent, Asian Americans, indigenous nations, and other progressive and genuine working class segments of the population. Although the coup failed to overturn the 2020 elections, efforts have been underway since this time period to reverse the capacity of the oppressed and working class and democratic forces to participate in the electoral process. At least 19 states, legislative bodies within those states and their governors have passed and signed into law restrictions on the right to vote. They also have restrictions on the opening and objective counting of the ballots and the certification of all elections from local institutions to the offices of the federal government. In states such as Texas and some of the most heavily populated areas, where Austin, Texas is, for example, the absentee ballot applications are being rejected at an enormous rate. In Austin, 50% of those who applied for absentee ballots had their applications rejected. The failure of the Senate to pass several voting rights bills that would in fact nullify the restrictive laws which were upheld by the conservative-dominated US Supreme Court must be met with mass action on the part of the people. All anti-racist and mass democratic forces have no alternative than to organize to meet the challenges of the coming months. We, as the Detroit MLK Committee, are appealing to all of those within our listening and viewing audience to join in this renewed effort to halt the reinstitution of legalized segregation and the denial of fundamental democratic rights to the rapidly emerging majority population in the United States. Right now, I want to, of course, introduce my co-hosts for this very, very important event. And that, of course, is none other than Aurora Harris. And Aurora Harris is a nationally and internationally renowned poet, activist, and educator. She's a lecturer in African-American studies and literature at the University of Michigan in Dearborn. She is the 2020 Community Hero Award recipient of the Association of Chinese Americans. In 2014, she received the Howard Zinn Lifetime Award in Peace and Justice Studies Association. She is a co-founder of We the People of Detroit, and she's a board member of Broadside and Lotus Press. She is also the president of the Michigan chapter of the Filipino American Historical Society. Let's have a warm welcome for our sister and organizer, Aurora Harris. You have the floor.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, Abayomi. Welcome to Detroit. I'd like to introduce our first person to open up this program. Her name is Rosemary Wilson, but she is known as One Single Rose. One Single Rose is a nationally known award-winning poet, spoken word artist, singer, and actor from Detroit. She will be singing the Black National Anthem, as we know as Lift Every Voice and Sing, by J. Rosamond Johnson and James Weldon Johnson. Rosemary.
Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring, ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song full of of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us, facing the rising sun of our new day begun. Let us march on till victory is won. God of our weary years, God of our silent tears, thou who has brought us thus far on the way, thou who has by thy might led us into the light, keep us forever in the path, we pray, lest our feet stray from the places, our God, where we met thee, lest our hearts, drunk with the wine of the world, we forget thee, shadowed beneath thy hand, true may we forever stand, true to our God, true to our native land. Thank you.
Thank you so much. One Single Rose. Let's give all praise and blessings. Thank you so much. That was beautiful. And now we're going to go back to my co-host, Abiomi.
Thank you so much, One Single Rose, for that beautiful rendition of Lift Every Voice and Sing. Right now, we want to move to our land acknowledgement.
Hello, everyone. My name is Sarah Torres. I am indigenous to Turtle Island, and I am not a local native, but I want to honor, along with you all here, the Anishinaabe people who are here before us, who are here now, and who will be here in the future. It's important to remember whose land we are on, and also the people who are here. And though we are doing this event virtual, we would be doing it here in Detroit, known as Wawayatanang, and known now as Detroit. So just want to thank everyone for being here, and blessings to everybody.
Thank you so much, Sarah, a member of the Detroit MLK Planning Committee for the last 2 years, where we've been doing this virtually. Right now, we want to move into discussing the Detroit water struggle. We have Sylvia Ordonez, who is a co-founder of the People's Water Board, an activist and organizer with the Michigan Welfare Rights Organization, and a nationally known activist in regard to water rights and advocacy for the poor. Sylvia.
Thank you very much, Abayomi. It's always an honor and pleasure to work alongside you and Aurora and so many other folks here for peace and justice. I also just want to, again, appreciate the beautiful song by One Single Rose and also, Mr. Harvey, thank you so much for your interpretation. So good morning, friends and comrades, and happy Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day to you on this national holiday celebration for civil rights, equity, and justice. Today, we would probably be expecting to have several inches of snow on the ground, being up here in Michigan. But instead, we're watching and worrying as we're seeing the storm sweep across Mississippi and up to the eastern end of the United States towards Maine. Similarly, there's been unprecedented snowstorms that are hitting the West Coast regions of this nation, and seafloor volcanic eruptions been causing tidal waves as the effects of climate change indicate just how much damage we've done to Mother Earth, something that Indigenous people, as Sarah reminds us, who are also the original caretakers of these waters and lands, have long warned us about and called for us to change and respect. Living in Detroit and the Great Lakes, we're blessed to live alongside the world's most abundant source of fresh water, surface fresh water. Yet for years, we've spoken on this day about the unjust and immoral contradictions experienced by low-income residents when political officials have denied this life-giving resource to people too poor to pay for it. Moreover, the COVID pandemic brought an unanticipated global awakening to public health dangers and policy failures when people are denied basic access to running water and sanitation. In Detroit, we were able to bring a callous mayor to his knees in March of 2020, when the governor agreed with our pleas to restore water service to all disconnected households. And again, I just want to emphasize, this was a people's victory. It's also been, though, another heartbreaking year of loss and grief, as we've lost loved ones and friends to this unrelenting respiratory disease. It's important, I believe, that we pause for a moment to acknowledge so many water warriors who have joined the ancestors. Our vigilance and persistence, both with them and with those we have with us today, have led to the first statewide moratorium on water shutoffs and has lasted in many cities and towns across Michigan since the pandemic began, including Detroit. Our water activists and frontline organizations have also led national conversations and spurred federal legislation and policy changes on the water and wastewater needs of people. We know this will be a politically critical year in many respects, including the anticipated end to the water shutoff moratorium in Detroit specifically. It will be upon all of us to ensure that the federal funds we have clamored for many years to address racial and economic injustice and inequities that are highlighted by Dr. King almost 60 years ago in Detroit will deliver on the promises from this Biden administration. So today, let's renew our calls for action to ensure civil rights, human rights, and economic rights for our most vulnerable brothers and sisters, and to promise one another that we will not let up until justice rolls down like water and righteousness like a mighty stream. Thank you, comrades.
Thank you so much. I want to turn it back over to Aurora.
Aurora, you're muted. Aurora, you're muted.
Well, while we get that worked out, we have Wardell Montgomery, who is a Detroit area poet and songwriter, a longtime activist in the city of Detroit. Let's have a warm welcome for Brother Wardell Montgomery. He's muted too. Wardell, you have to unmute.
I don't think we can hear you, Wardell.
No, you're muted. Yeah, he has to hit the mute button. Okay.
I'm showing him as unmuted.
It's not coming through. Okay, well, maybe we could come back to Wardell. We have next Lloyd Simpson for the People Against Corporate Takeover. Lloyd, are you there?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead. Loud and clear.
Okay, thank you, Abiyomi. And I want to thank you all for joining us today. As Abiyomi said, my name is Lloyd Simpson. I'm an organizer with Detroit Will Breathe, but today I'm here on behalf of the People Against Corporate Theft. PACT is a coalition of progressive organizations opposing the World Economic Forum, a capitalist think tank spreading the ideology of neoliberalism and the privatization schemes of banks, corporations, and developers across the world. They wrap this systematic project of theft in the language of public-private partnerships. They brought what they're calling the Center for Urban Transformation to Detroit because we have a city government that has shown it will bend over backwards to hand over public resources to billionaires. And so as we commemorate the late Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. on this day, let us not forget what he stood for, because there are those that invoke his name but distort his legacy. Politicians in government, executives in boardrooms, and the misleaders they buy off with a few pieces of silver to suppress and diffuse the masses. Martin Luther King did not spend his life fighting to integrate a system of racialized economic exploitation and dispossession. He fought to unmake it. He did not spend his life fighting so that a few among us could enrich ourselves and call it diversity, equity, and inclusion, while over 30% of Detroit languishes in the despair of poverty. He did not spend his life fighting so that Black cops and Black police chiefs could visit the same violence on our brothers and sisters as their white counterparts that came before them. No, if he were here with us today, he would not have been in City Hall with Mike Duggan or in the White House with Joe Biden. He would have been in the streets with the people marching and organizing for a better world. If he were here today, he would say defund the police. If he were here today, he would say defund capitalism. Black faces in high places has meant little for the vast majority of working class Black people, and it's time we reckon with that. Neoliberalism is antithetical to King's vision of human rights that included guaranteed employment, guaranteed housing, and an end to US imperialism abroad, and we need to reckon with that as well. Martin Luther King died fighting against racism, militarism, and rampant materialism. In fact, one could argue he died fighting against the very imperatives of capitalist exploitation. King is often quoted when he said, "The arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice." But that can only be true insofar as we are willing to take action. It can only be true if we collectively engage in mass struggle to bring about a more just world. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lloyd. Representation of the newly emerging activist corps here in the city of Detroit. It's been a pleasure to know Lloyd over the last year and a half or so. And thank you so much for your contribution. Right now, Aurora, are you back in?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Thank you so much.
Okay.
And you said Wardell would come back?
Yes, he was just on a few, I just saw him a minute ago. Wardell, are you there? Can you unmute? Unmute Wardell. Can we automatically unmute Wardell? He's on the screen, but I can't, he's not
Okay.
unmuted. Can we automatically unmute him?
I did.
Well,
There we
Wardell,
go. He is
We s-
unmuted now, but
we
we're
see
still,
you, but we can't hear you.
make sure your volume is up
Turn your volume up.
on the device. Well, we'll come back. Right now, we want to move on to Valerie Jean, who is a longtime Detroit resident and activist. She is a water warrior. She's part of the People's Water Board. She's also a longtime member of Detroit MLK Committee, a photographer, and all around community activist. Valerie will be talking about the struggle for environmental justice surrounding Line 3. Valerie.
Line 5, actually. Yes.
Line
Welcome.
5.
Yep. Yep.
Well, explain.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you so much for inviting me on this call. It's so that we could talk about Line 5. It's really important, and we're gearing up for a really, really important year. We're organizing all year to train people. We're doing legal observer trainings. We're doing nonviolent direct action trainings. We're teaching people how to make knots. We're teaching people how to sew. We're getting everybody taught something, some way, so that they can participate in the shutting down of Line 5. We're organizing all year long to meet at the Straits of Mackinac at the beginning of September, and we're organizing thousands of people to be there. It's the only way that we're going to actually get some leverage with this. Thousands of people have to show up, thousands of people have to be activated, and thousands have to show up. The way that it's going to play out through the year is going to be different events planned so that people can learn how to kayak and do all of that. You can go to Michigan Coalition Against Tar Sands Facebook page to keep up with all of the events, the trainings, and the ways for you to get activated. We're going to make sure that everybody has a way that they're comfortable to do that. As most of you know, maybe you didn't, May 13th of 2021, the state of Michigan yanked Enbridge's easement. So they're illegally right now, and have been since May 2021, they are running Line 5 illegally. The state of Michigan is fighting it, but Enbridge is a beast. That's why we have to show up together like a beast to fight the beast. We have to. So the main objective this year is to shut down Line 5. Please come to our Facebook page, get all of those event links, and get activated. Thank you all so much for being here. And as MLK said, freedom is never voluntarily given by the oppressor. It must be demanded by the oppressed. We got to do it. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that very important message. We want to go back to Aurora right now.
Thank you, Val. We need a contact call-in number for Wardell. He's having some difficulty. So if someone could call him with a number to call in, we'd appreciate it. Thank you, Val, for that message. Our next performer is Sarah Torres. She's a singer and musician for the people. Sarah Torres often performs to uplift friends, strangers, social justice rallies, marches, and benefits. Sarah shares songs about love, about struggle, and about life. Let's welcome Sarah Torres.
What you having a problem with, brother?
Hello. You're unmuted there, brother.
But
Thank you. Is the we have ASL? Okay, cool. We had technical difficulties. I want to thank Lou Novak, behind the scenes technical person. Thank you, Valerie, and everyone for being here. The song I'm gonna sing is called Water is Life, because water is indeed life. And here we go.
You came from far away. You take my land from so long ago. You still want more today. Give back what was stolen. Honor Voices cry out from across the water. Almost all are silenced. Those who killed are widely known. White man's law pursues none. It is time You come with your black snakes of oil, polluting where it slithers. You'll poison our water one drop at a time. Our lives are outweighed by your greed. Water is life. Without it, we Let the buffalo freely roam. Let the dams fall down. Let the rivers rise again. Let the trees grow tall. Pray for the ocean. Pray for the rivers, the streams, the fish, and all of the people of the earth.
Thank you, Sarah Torres, for that beautiful song. And I'd like to also acknowledge all of the persons, the two people who are doing our American Sign Language, our interpreters today. We'd like to acknowledge them this morning. Thank you for your beautiful job. And I'd like to turn it over to Wardell. Can you hear us now? I have Wardell on the phone. I don't know if we can hear him. Wardell? Okay, you're on.
I'm talking to Lou.
Okay, we can hear you.
Sorry, that ain't gonna work. I thought I would use my phone to provide him with audio. I have to look up those phone numbers for him and get those to him. If we could just move on.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay, again, let's thank Sarah Torres and our interpreters, and let's move back to Abioni to introduce our next guest.
Thank you so much, Aurora, as well as Sarah Torres. Right now, we have a recorded message from the Charlevoix Village Association on the east side of Detroit, one of the most engaged community organizations, and I would venture to say most militant neighborhood organizations in the city. Are we ready with that message from CVA?
Hello, everyone. My name is Toya Watts, president of Charlevoix Village Association, and I'm going to redo this video right quick because I can't go through. Maybe it's too long. But the word that we're going through now in our community is gentrification. Gentrification is a hell of a stanky word. It's a bitch for us in the neighborhood, a struggle. It's just more than a notion. And if people haven't woke up and seen what's around you in certain neighborhoods, change the names. Open the doors for the developers. The city and the developers is getting all the profit. We people, as black people in the community, we still not sitting at the table. Our boots are on the ground. We're not asking for much, but we're asking for something at the table. Okay, especially when it comes to our homes, especially when the flood came. So where do we go from here? Okay? And I mean, it's going to be a tsunami. You see the change. You see it when you drive down the street, how the streets have changed. The lights, everything has changed in our neighborhood, especially in certain neighborhoods. And we by the river, we near downtown, we near Eastern Market, we're near Belle Isle. They didn't took over. So what you call it? And the respect that we don't get as black homeowners, especially the renters. I feel sorry for the renters that's still here because they going by the foot of an apartment building. If you can manage $1,400 a month, I wish you well. I wish anybody well that they can afford a $1,400 a month home, apartment to live in for 700 and some feet of an apartment. That sounds like a dorm almost. So I'm just saying that the word gentrification is more than a notion for us in our neighborhood. It is really an insult. It's a slap in our damn face. And talking about tsunami is here. Okay, so we getting pushed out. They don't know which way they coming to attack us. And the new word they putting out, since we the first state that ever been bankruptcy, is urban transformation. What do that mean? Because we don't know which way they coming to attack us. It could be water. It could be our property tax. It could be blight. If we can't keep up with Becky and them down the street. And Becky and them tired of us not maintaining our property. So we don't know which way they coming for us. And all this land grab is going to be a hell of a goddamn tsunami for us if we, as people, don't stay awake on this and stay woke. Because you see it when you drive down the street. You can see it downtown. That's Gilbert land. It ain't Detroit no more. So I bless you all. Celebrating Martin Luther King Celebration Day. Stay together, brothers and sisters, or we gonna be left out all the way. Bye.
Thank you so much to Toya from the Charlevoix Village Association, the president of that organization. And next, we have a pre-recorded message from Reverend Edward Pinckney of Berrien County, Michigan, which is in the southwest part of the state. Reverend Pinckney has been twice a political prisoner here in the state of Michigan around the question of voting rights. He was imprisoned on 2 occasions. And today, he is in a heated struggle around water rights, the poisoning of the water in Benton Harbor. Let's have the recorded message from Reverend Edward Pinckney.
Can we make sure the ASL interpreter is on screen too.
Happy Martin Luther King Day. This is a great day for everyone, but we should not be out here celebrating until we get this thing right. Right now, things are not right, especially in the city of Benton Harbor. The struggle that has taken place in recent years in Benton Harbor is a case in point, one that holds a number of lessons for the American people. The fight in Benton Harbor is a war. This is no conflict. This is a war. We are fighting a war here in the city of Benton Harbor. And it holds a number of lessons. The fight in Benton Harbor is real, and the fight is over whether the Americans will have prosperity or democracy or live in poverty under the heels of the corporate rule. We are being poisoned. For the last 3 years, the residents of Benton Harbor has been poisoned, and nobody said a mumbling word. Nobody even wanted to talk about it. The lead was as high as 24 parts per billion. It had even went up to 33 parts per billion. We filed a petition with the EPA. That petition started the wheels to turn. We filed that petition to enhance the chance of the residents of Benton Harbor having clean, safe water. But the problem was this. The governor refused to say, and the mayor here refused to say that the water was unsafe. They simply said that due to abundance of caution, do not drink the water. That's the wrong language that they're sending out right now to this community. But the problem is the people, the trust, they have lost the trust of the residents of Benton Harbor. They have supplied bottled water, which is good, which is like putting a Band-Aid on a bullet wound. But unfortunately, we must keep the pressure on them so they'll know that what is going on today should not happen to any other community. We should not have to go through stuff like this. We should be building for the future right now. There's nothing more important than the community standing up and fighting back. And I just want to close by saying, happy Martin Luther King Day. Those who are out there. Happy.
Thank you, Reverend Pinkney. Let's give a thanks to him and your important message. Our next guest and performers are Joe and Sheila Kidd. Joe Kidd and Sheila Burke. They both share a common heritage of Irish and Native American traditions that comes from the Appalachian regions of Kentucky and West Virginia. They're now based in the Ann Arbor, Detroit, Michigan area. They have used their experiences and their visions in their writing of their profound recordings. They are a perfect blend of universal and timeless Americana, folk, and world music with powerful lyrics and beautiful voices. Let's welcome Joe Kidd and Sheila Burke.
Thank you, Aurora. We're coming to you right now from Houston. We're on tour down here on our way up to Memphis. And we're gonna stop for an extra couple minutes in Memphis and reflect on some of the things that happened up there in relation to Dr. King. But right now, we're going to sing a title song from our CD, and it is written in the spirit of Dr. King. And so we're real proud and feel privileged to be part of this. And this, I think this might be our 8th appearance in a row with you all. So we're just going to get started now. It's called Everybody Has a Purpose.
now. Everybody has a feeling that rises up. Everybody has a passion, a heart full of.
We seem to have lost the performers.
Okay,
Uh, Here
well,
they are.
maybe we could get them back later if possible. The audio was a little distorted.
Yep, they're back, but they're muted now.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll move on at this point. Right now, we have an address from the Palestinian Youth Movement from Yasmin.
Hello, can everybody hear me?
Yes, go right ahead.
Thank you. Hello, everyone, and peace be to you all. My name is Yasmin Suleiman, and I'm here on behalf of the Detroit chapter of the Palestinian Youth Movement. And I'm here with you all to commemorate the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. So thank you all so much for having me. I'm very grateful for your presence here today. The Palestinian Youth Movement is a transnational, independent, and grassroots movement of Arab and Palestinian youth dedicated to the liberation of our homeland and our people. Now, as a transnational movement, we recognize the importance of working in unison and in joint struggle with communities outside of our own, and we understand the necessity of using different tactics in pursuit of our liberation and the liberation of all oppressed people. As we all know, Dr. King believed in the power of nonviolent resistance as the ultimate means of bringing about social consciousness and racial equality, and this included tactics such as protests, strikes, and boycotts. Now, throughout the civil rights movement, Dr. King and his followers demonstrated the potential of these tactics to change the oppressive social conditions of the time. And throughout history, Palestinians have also applied these tactics in their fight for liberation, and they often draw inspiration from Dr. King and other leaders of the civil rights movement. Just 13 days ago, Palestinian prisoner Hisham Abu Hawash ended his 141-day hunger strike in protest of being imprisoned by the Zionist state for 16 months without charge. Hisham, like many people in the US, was arrested wrongfully and without cause. Hisham, like Dr. King and his followers, put his body on the line in nonviolent protest against a very violent and oppressive entity. His strike ended in victory with a release date set for February 26th. And we hope to see the same victory for the inmates on Rikers Island, New York, where over 200 inmates are currently on hunger strike in protest of inhumane prison conditions and spikes in COVID cases in Rikers Prison. Hisham's victory is one of the many that our people have achieved through the same tactics that Dr. King promoted. We live in the victory of the Alabama bus boycott, a 381-day boycott that gave us the desegregated buses we ride today. And we live in the ongoing victory of the Palestinian Boycott, Divestment, and Sanctions, or BDS movement, a continuous campaign that has successfully targeted companies profiting off the occupation of Palestine and oppression of Palestinian people. We live in the victories of nonviolent resistance, in spite of the violence of our oppressors. When Hisham Abu Hawash was violently thrown in prison without cause, or when Dr. King was beaten and imprisoned in Birmingham, Alabama, we rose out of this violence in victory. And of course, there is still work to be done. We, the Palestinian Youth Movement, hope to and will certainly share more of these victories with each other in the future. And we, the Palestinian Youth Movement, are beyond grateful to be able to commemorate Dr. King on this day with you all. We hope to continue to work together towards liberation for all oppressed people around the world. And peace be with you all. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, and solidarity with the Palestinian people, free Palestine, and all oppressed people throughout the world. And of course, we're going to continue our program here. You're listening and watching the 19th annual virtual Dr. Martin Luther King Day rally here in the city of Detroit. And of course, right now we have a recorded message all the way from the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela. Jesus Rodriguez Espinosa is the former Consul General for the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela in the city of Chicago. Of course, due to the hostility of the US government, successive US governments towards Venezuela, their credentials were withdrawn by the previous Trump administration. Today, Jesus Rodriguez Espinosa is the editor and publisher of Orinoco Tribune, which is based in Venezuela. Do we have his message ready?
Yes.
Greetings to the organizers and attendees to the 19th annual Detroit Martin Luther King Day virtual rally. My name is Jesus Rodriguez Espinosa, and I'm the editor of OrinocoTribune.com. I want to say that to celebrate the legacy of Martin Luther King is very important, but most important is to build a movement to really change the direction U.S. imperialism in the U.S. and abroad is heading in its attempt to transfer decision-making role to corporations. Chavista and socialist-minded people in Venezuela have suffered first-hand the slashes of U.S. imperialism. First with neoliberalism during the 80s and 90s in the 20th centuries, and more recently with criminal sanctions aiming at annihilating millions of Venezuelans just for regime change purposes. We know the same criminal behavior is suffered by unserved communities in the US, especially the Afro-American and Latino communities, and that needs to stop. We know that many in the US are with Venezuela Chavismo in the struggle, and we want to reiterate that we in Venezuela are also in solidarity with your struggle, and we are most aware of the urgent need for a strengthening social justice movement in the US to face the great challenges that you are going to face in the coming years. US illegal sanctions are trying to boycott water services and electricity services in Venezuela in similar ways they are doing in Michigan and many other places in the US. We know that the ones really pushing that agenda are corporations controlling politicians, something they are trying to do globally. The world order. We need to stop that. We must oppose that by all means possible. Que viva Martin Luther King, que viva the class consciousness in the US, y que viva the people that fight for social justice as Martin Luther King did. Un abrazo from Caracas, compañeros.
Thank you so much for that presentation from the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela, our friend, old comrade, of course, Jesus Rodriguez Espinosa. And right now we want to go back to Aurora Harris. Aurora, I think you're muted.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. I was saying thank you to the last speaker and thanking Joe Kidd and Sheila Burke for the performance that they did that we could hear. They were having some technical difficulties because they are down in Texas and the reception wasn't good. At this point, I'd like to welcome B Ward Poetry. They are a community organizer, graphic designer, painter, poet, and plant-based cook whose passions are rooted in love, vulnerability, and healing. She is a creator, spiritual being, healer, and light worker, backed by her ancestors, guided by spirit, and loved by God. B Ward Poetry is a storyteller. Let's welcome B. Ward Poetry.
Peace, peace, everyone. Thank you for providing the space for me to be here and speak my piece for Ancestor King. Gratitude to the divine creators, Ashe to our ancestors, of whom shoulders we stand on to carry out this work. Gratitude to the elders who inform my work daily and whisper nuggets in my ear as well. I just have a poem about Dr. Martin Luther King. Just going to get into it. Martin Luther King had a dream, but America created his nightmare. Because these dreams wouldn't exist without your actions permeating his subconscious. Dear America, you are the curator of this system painted in white supremacy. So stop only hanging your peaceful versions when Dr. King was fighting for revolution and radical democracy, calling out your isms of capital and military, organizing campaigns for economic equity, criticizing your values and Christianity. Ironically, his dream was your nightmare, so you killed him and made it look like you weren't there. But we all know the truth. And that is the weight of this legacy, to destroy your exhibits of exceptionalism and reveal your basic bigotry, to build a reality that not only exists in dreams, but communities that you keep gentrifying, to cause chaos in the same streets my brothers and sisters keep dying. So yeah, Martin Luther King had a dream, but America created his nightmare. Our lullabies are our chants, and our brothers and sisters breathe life into everything you feared. Ashe, Dr. King. Thank you.
Thank you, B. Ward Poetry, for such a lovely poem. And we will turn it over to Abayomi to introduce our next guest.
Thank you so much, B. Ward, for that presentation. Right now, we want to have a speaker from Northern Ireland. The Northern Ireland struggle against British imperialism is a centuries-long effort on the part of the people of Ireland for national liberation, as well as for unification. And we have a recorded message from Kate McCabe on the 50th anniversary coming up of Bloody Sunday in Northern Ireland during the late 1960s and early 1970s, in solidarity. And of course, being inspired by the African-American liberation struggle, they call their struggle the Civil Rights Movement of Northern Ireland. Do we have that recorded message from Northern Ireland?
I believe John is live. That was the plan.
Great.
Can you hear me?
Yes, go right ahead. It's great.
Hello,
to have you
everyone.
on.
My name is John Kelly, and I'm speaking to you from the city of Derry in Ireland on behalf of the Bloody Sunday families and the Bloody Sunday Trust and the people of Derry and Ireland. I'm very glad to be here with you all as we mark what would have been Martin Luther King Jr.'s 93rd birthday. I'm sure some of you are aware of the tremendous influence that Dr. King and his comrades had on our civil rights struggle here in Ireland. In the 1960s, we began to watch what they were doing, and we copied it. We took to the streets to peacefully demand equality. We wanted equality in voting, housing, and employment, much the same as Dr. King and his supporters did. What has happened in the United States? Our peaceful demands were met with a violent response. On the 7th of March, 1965, at a march from Selma to Montgomery, violence by state troopers against the marchers led to that day being called Bloody Sunday. On the 30th of January, 1972, as we marched peacefully to protest against internment without trial, we had our own Bloody Sunday. British paratroopers opened fire on peaceful marchers, murdering 14 men and boys and wounding 17 others. One of those boys murdered was my younger brother, Michael. He was just 17 years old, attending his first ever march when a soldier we can only call Soldier F shot him dead. The British government lied about the murders and claimed their soldiers had only shot gunmen and bombers. Totally untrue. We had to campaign for many long years to get them to admit the truth. And for our campaign, we took inspiration from those who had gone before us. From our own civil rights movement in Ireland in the 1960s, and from a civil rights movement led by Dr. King in America. We took inspiration from how they had not given to the obstruction and abuse and violence, and how they kept going in the face of so much adversity. We kept going too. And in 2010, 38 years after the British Army had murdered our loved ones, we forced them to admit the truth, that all those murdered and wounded that day were innocent, and we forced them to apologize. And now I work in a museum, the Museum of Free Derry, and hopefully if you've ever been to Derry, please call in, where I tell this story every day. And in our section on civil rights, we have a photo of Dr. King, and we are very proud to have it there. Thank you.
Thank
you so much, Comrade John Kelly from Northern Ireland. It's an honor to have your participation in this Detroit MLK Day, and hopefully this is just the beginning of future collaborations between Detroit and Northern Ireland. Back over to Aurora.
Thank you. Our next speaker that I have here is Gerald Jordan from EMEAC for the climate struggle. Is Daryl on?
How y'all doing? Yes. Can you hear me?
Okay, yes.
Yes, loud and
Daryl is a longtime activist and organizer, recently retired co-director of EMEAC and a delegate to the UN COP26 in Glasgow, Scotland. Let's welcome Daryl Jordan.
How's everybody doing? Can you hear me? I really appreciated watching this morning. I want to thank the Martin Luther King Committee for keeping this alive because for the last 2 years, things have changed so drastically that a lot of things aren't motivating us and keeping us alive and well and energized. And so I thank you for doing the rally, even though it's on Zoom, and for all of those that work with me closely and know me. Y'all know I hate Zooms. You know, I'd be protesting against these if they weren't so productive. But I want to say happy Martin Luther King Day. Happy birthday to Martin Luther King in heaven. I want to say that I'm so glad that we can celebrate Martin Luther King and the things that he did and the kinds of ways that he contributed and believed. And I want to also thank all of us, because the people who jumped on a video today, a virtual meeting today to celebrate Martin Luther King, says that you are highly motivated and committed to working for social change. And I want to talk about that part of Martin Luther King, because I just got back from Scotland to the COP26 meeting about climate change and environment and the water. And you know, every time I said I was from Detroit, boy, folks got all energized and stuff. Detroit is so well known and respected everywhere. And I know it was about 6 or 7 people from Detroit that was there that are like me and you all, fighting for justice and fighting for the people. But there were also other folks from Metro Detroit there. There was some of those high-level folks from DTE in some of them places. And one of them, I can't think of his name, but they said that he was the chairperson of some climate change committee over there. And I bring that up because y'all know I just go all over the map, because sometimes we're in the struggle to make change, but we are being played by those people that we're struggling against. And like line 5, Valerie was talking about, you know, we got real issues with that because DTE and I can't think of the name of the group, you know who they are. They got that damn commercial that come on at midnight if you up late at night, And even though you work on these issues, you be sitting back almost thinking about what a great company they are in regards to what they're doing and stuff. So we got to get real. And when I was over there in Scotland, I got to work with all kinds of folks. And so it felt like I was at home in Detroit, you know? And so I wanted to say this real quick, because I know y'all don't want me to keep on talking, because I talk some real stuff before it's over. But I want to say, I have a dream. I have a dream that we'll have healthy, safe, and affordable water. I have a dream that there'll be no more air pollution, especially
Baba Darrell, we've lost your feed.
Yeah, looked like he froze up. So anyway, Aurora, I want to turn it back over to you to introduce our next cultural presentation.
Okay, thank you. Our next performers are the Alan Dinar Trio. We have on guitar, Jacob Schwant, and on drums, Andre Brinkley. They'll be performing Inner City Blues by Marvin Gaye. Let's welcome the Alan Dinar Trio.
How's everyone doing? Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
How's everyone doing? Happy Martin Luther King Day. We're here to celebrate the life of Martin Luther King and his countless endeavors for freedom. And I chose Marvin Gaye's Inner City Blues because Martin Luther King, you know, also fought for the inner city and fought for pretty much to eradicate these economic disparities that we see within our community, and on a social level, on an economic level, and just on a human level. He had a vision that he had a dream that he wanted to make reality for really just the Black community and people of color to be seen as equal and to be accepted and to be able to live just as freely as anyone else. So we're gonna play Marvin Gaye's Inner City Blues because it's a lot of blues in the inner city. And I believe that we can create a world for all people, including Blacks and people of color, to just be free, be free. So this is Inner City Blues, Marvin Gaye. Thank y'all so much.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, the Alan Denard Trio. Makes everyone want to go outside and holler for justice and peace and voting rights and water affordability and everything else that's wrong on the planet. Thank you again. We enjoyed that.
Thank y'all so much.
I'm going to turn it over back to Abayomi to introduce our next guest.
Yes, and thank you, Alan Denard and the Alan Denard Trio and others for your constant cultural warriorship here in the city of Detroit and beyond. And right now, we want to bring on Reverend Bill Wiley Kellerman. He is a retired minister here in the city of Detroit. He's an author who has written extensively on the peace movement and civil disobedience, the role of civil disobedience in the fight for social justice. And of course, he's going to talk to us today on the struggle to end war in the United States and throughout the world. Let's have a warm welcome for Reverend Bill Wiley Kellerman.
Thank you, Abayomi, and Aurora and all who gather here today. Exactly 1 year before his state assassination, Martin Luther King Jr. gave a major address for clergy and laity concerned in New York City called Beyond Vietnam, Breaking the Silence. He said Vietnam was only a symptom of a deeper malady in the national spirit that if ignored, we'd be organizing for generations, clergy and laity concerned about Guatemala or Peru, about Thailand, Cambodia, Mozambique, South Africa. He named Venezuela. It was a prophetic and prescient list. What would he think of 20 years of devastation in Afghanistan, of Iraq, Sudan, Libya, Pakistan, Syria, Somalia, Yemen, the ongoing struggle in Palestine? It makes the heart ache just to name them. Dr. King acknowledged he had no authority speaking to young people in urban ghettos about nonviolence, quote, without having first spoken clearly to the greatest purveyor of violence in the world today, my own government. In addition to domestic and sea-based strategic weapons, the US has 750 forward military bases in some 80 foreign countries, from which it launches wars, military interventions, and airstrikes. including over-the-horizon drone attacks, the state terrorism of robotic air warfare. Congress can pass an annual budget of $750 billion, but find an act supporting children in poverty, low-wage workers, and healthcare coverage, even some meager climate measures too expensive. As King put it, a nation that continues to spend year after year more money on military than on programs of social uplift is approaching spiritual death. You all but called for an autopsy. We barely mentioned nuclear weapons, the pinnacle of escalation, dominance, and their spiritual pall. Once you've allowed, as a matter of policy, embedded in technology, that you're prepared to incinerate half the planet or more for the sake of superiority. And the slower burn of climate assault follows almost effortlessly as imperial fallout. So where do we go from here? Dr. King concluded toward love, not the naive and sentimental sort that covers passivity or disengagement, but the risky and costly kind. It could undergird his 5-point plan for ending the war or drive the revolution for which he called in that speech. What he named the Hindu, Muslim, Christian, Jewish, Buddhist belief about ultimate reality certainly encompassed love of enemies, but also the love of one another in struggle, movement, and community, which can sometimes be harder, but essential to resistance and transformation, the love that we can feel in this gathering today. No to empire's bloody no. Yes to all else. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Reverend Bill. And of course, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., during the last year and a half of his life, was a strong proponent for peace, spoke out forcefully against the Vietnam War, and paid the ultimate price for linking war, racism, and militarism as the primary objective of social justice activists. Right now, we want to move on to Iman Saleh of the Yemeni Liberation Movement. We know that Yemen has been a target for almost 7 years now for a daily, weekly bombing campaign at the aegis of the United States, utilizing Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates and other forces. Let's have a warm welcome for Iman Saleh of YLM.
Salam, peace everyone. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so honored to be one of the panelists among these very intelligent, creative and beautiful people. So my name is Iman Saleh. I'm an organizer with the Yemeni Liberation Movement. So we're YLM. We're a grassroots volunteer-led organization that's working to end the war in Yemen. And I'm gonna revolve this around US imperialism and militarism, particularly in Yemen, which we all know right now is experiencing the worst humanitarian crisis. And one of the things that I know that the dear Martin Luther King would talk about today if he was alive is the negative impact of sanctions, and how he would revolve that around his growing talk around US imperialism and militarism. And he would be absolutely appalled at the cruel war tactic that sanctions is creating. And so for one of the things that that the sanctions is doing to, in Yemen particularly, is it creates negative economic growth that particularly affect women, minority communities, and other marginalized groups. They magnify negative effects on the economy and prevent the population from revolting and creating better conditions for themselves. And they also have a damaging effect on income inequality and impact just the everyday average person they impact more of the local communities and the local civilians than they would on the sanctioned countries' leaders. So all this revolves around what MLK held dear to his heart, which was the poor and the marginalized and the women and the children. And I believe that he would call on these institutions to take a stand against these crimes against humanity, no matter what their organization status was or whatever support that they received from the government. And I especially like to bring this up because so many of our places of worship and so many of these organizations that actually claim to benefit on our suffering through grants and through being able to provide aid is sort of like being able to support these countries that are suffering while in turn profiting off of our suffering. And so I believe he would call on these organizations to take a stand. The anti-war movement is also fundamentally intersecting with the struggle for civil rights. And we can directly relate this to the increased Pentagon budget, where billions of dollars have been going to where we could instead provide that for healthcare or housing, but instead is fueling the military tactics that's killing Yemenis. So I also want to be clear as my just a last note here, that the YLM doesn't support this reformist stance where I believe MLK left off. And as much as we admire him, we don't believe that allocating funds and resources to American social welfare programs will also inadvertently end US imperialism. We have to specifically take a stance against US imperialism that requires forceful revolutions. And so I will end it there, and I really appreciate everybody giving me this time to talk about the humble Yemen and my beautiful people. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Iman Saleh, for that presentation on the current situation in Yemen. And right now I want to turn it back over to Aurora, who will introduce our next spoken word artist.
Again, thank you, Iman, for your very important message this morning. Our next presenter is Bilal, the poet. He is an internationally known poet and musician from Detroit. Let's welcome Bilal. Bilal, can you unmute yourself?
Good day. First, I want to shout out to Sister Katrina Muhammad on the excellent book, Relationship Talks. Relationship Talks book. Relationshipstalkbook.com. Relationshiptalksbook.com. Check it out. That's a jewel. I'm gonna play a little bit for you and just give you a little shot of my style of how I'm expressing what's going on with us today. often contemplate eternity. Will this present madness ever end, or is my perception irrelevant? The science ever complex, the expanse of the omniverse, the exact one. Everyone and everything is intertwined. From mud pies to the finest form. Sweet like chocolate or lemon love, praise. You're smiling right now because you just tasted my name. So I dream. Do you know what I want my Afro-future existentialism to be? I want every morning for every black man and woman to make love. Yes, that too, that's the first thing you thought of. I was thinking an end to wars over who's got more. Unless it's over who got more and more love. I want all children to play, be free of all dangers and hostility, and I feel the dreams. Dreaming inspires their imagination. I want the elders to laugh and dance and peer across the expanse, see the fullness of the Creator's master plan. So who am I? I'm the real master of imperfection, the doctor of distance, or Osiris' lost direction, seeking to be peace back together, a feather's weight, balancing the heart and the scale.
Thank you for that lovely video and performance and poetry, Bilal. Let's give it up for Bilal. And I'm going to turn the segment over back to Abayomi. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bilal, for that very creative and futuristic presentation. Jorge Parra is a Colombian injured General Motors worker. He is now in Colombia, in Bogota, but he has visited Detroit on at least 2 occasions. He has many friends here in the city of Detroit, and a social call, which is an organization to support the General Motors injured workers, are still occupying areas close to the U.S. Embassy in Bogota. We have a pre-recorded message from Jorge Parra and also an interpretation from local labor activist and community organizer Frank Hammer.
Hi, sisters and brothers. Un placer saludarlos el día de hoy, el día de Martin Luther King. Desde nuestra lucha, ubicado enfrente de la Embajada de Estados Unidos, le enviamos un saludo fraternal de solidaridad y amistad. Nosotros enfrentamos a General Motors Colombia y a nuestro gobierno corrupto como lo hizo Martin Luther King, convencidos que los derechos humanos prevalecen sobre los intereses de unos pocos. Somos trabajadores de la línea de producción en GM Colombia, despedidos injustamente luego de adquirir enfermedades trabajando para GM. Sentimos una conexión especial con los residentes, organizadores, líderes sociales y trabajadores en Detroit. Sin duda, cada uno de ustedes conoce a alguien que trabaja en la industria automotriz y entiende la importancia de luchar en contra de que al trabajador se le trabaje o se le trate como un desechable. An injury to one is an injury to all. Thanks, Detroit.
Thank you. And now Frank Hammer.
Well, thank you to the MLK Day Committee for your continued solidarity with the fight for justice by the auto workers in GM in Colombia. I want to read the translation of the greetings that they just shared. Hi, sisters and brothers. A pleasure to greet you today on Martin Luther King Day. From our struggle located in Bogota, Colombia, in front of the U.S. Embassy, we send a fraternal greeting of solidarity and friendship. We are confronting General Motors in Colombia and a corrupt government. We are confronting General Motors in Colombia. Like Martin Luther King, we are convinced that human rights will prevail over the profit interests of a few. We are workers from the assembly line of GM in Colombia. We were dismissed unjustly by GM after developing injuries on the job. We feel a special connection with the residents, organizers, community leaders, and workers of Detroit. Each one of you likely knows someone who works in the auto industry, and you understand the importance of standing up to a practice of treating the worker as disposable. An injury to one is an injury to all. Thanks, Detroit.
And thank you, Brother Frank, for your continued work and solidarity with the people and workers of Columbia. And right now we want to bring in Yvonne Jones. Yvonne is a lifelong Detroiter. She is a City of Detroit retiree. She was on the front line in the fight against emergency management and bankruptcy during the period of 2013 and 2014. She is also a co-founder of the Detroit Active Retired Employees Association, and she is a organizer for the Moratorium Now Coalition. Yvonne has a proposal related to the plight of retirees and its impact, the impact of the inflationary spiral that we're now facing on the City of Detroit retirees. Yvonne, you have the floor.
Yes. I'd just first like to say, as a direct and proud beneficiary of the civil rights movement, I am honored and humbled to celebrate the legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., the civil rights movement, and all freedom fighters on this day. I come before you with a call of action issued by Moratorium Now and Detroit Active and Retired Employee Association. City of Detroit's general fund retirees have been severely impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic. Retirees among the most vulnerable population due to declining health and income. The death rate of Detroit's general fund retirees during the pandemic has exceeded expectations by 151%. Inflation for 2021 was at a 40-year high of 7%. This surge has decreased retirees' buying power substantially. For comparison, from 2015 to 2020, retirees lost only 9% in 6 years from inflation increases. General fund retirees stopped receiving cost of living adjustments due to the bankruptcy plan of adjustment in 2014. Retirees are having a hard time providing for their basic needs during this pandemic. Detroit's elected officials could use some of the $826 million of the American Rescue Funds received to rescue Detroit's general fund retirees. There are about 11,200 general fund retirees with an average yearly pension of $20,000. A one-time payment of 7% would be $1,400 to rescue a retiree from this severe loss. The cost to the City of Detroit would be less than $16 million, less than 2% of the total American Rescue Funds that Detroit received. This is what these funds were intended to do. We call on Detroit's mayor and city council to take immediate action to protect the City of Detroit's general fund retirees by rescuing them with a $1,400 pension booster shot. What can you do? Slide, please. Share our online petition. Sign our online petition and share it with your friends. Also, email Detroit City Council President Mary Sheffield, telling her that I support giving Detroit General Fund retirees a $1,400 pension booster to rescue them from last year's COVID-induced 7% inflation rate. And third, ask your friends and families to support this action by doing the above. Thank you. And we do this until we are all free.
Thank you so much, Yvonne, for that very important announcement and presentation. This struggle is ongoing. We know we hear a lot about inflation and how it's going to impact business, but the question is, how is it impacting workers, retirees, the poor? That is the real question. So we have a program for people to support here in the city of Detroit and throughout the Detroit metropolitan area.
And the link has been added to the chat. Thank you.
Thank you. Right now, we want to move into our keynote address. It is pre-recorded. Our keynote speaker is Catherine Coleman Flowers, who was born in Birmingham, Alabama, in the deep south of the United States. Catherine Coleman Flowers is an American environmental researcher and the founder of the Center for Rural Enterprises and Environmental Justice. She was selected in 2020 as a MacArthur Fellow. Her first book is entitled Waste: One Woman's Fight Against America's Dirty Secret, explores the environmental justice movement in rural United States. Flowers grew up in Lowndes County, Alabama, one of the poorest counties in the United States. Lowndes County, of course, is the birthplace of the Lowndes County Freedom Organization, the original Black Panther Party formed in 1965. She has been involved heavily in the environmental movement across the United States and indeed internationally. She attended the COP26 summit that was held recently in Glasgow, Scotland. She is also the executive director of the National Voting Rights Museum, located in Alabama. And she is also a leading member in the NAACP's Voter Empowerment Program. And of course, she has recently returned to academia and joined the University of Nebraska at Kearney for a master's degree in history. She has received numerous awards. In 2004, from the Interreligious and International Peace Council Crown for Peace Award for exemplary leadership and reconciliation and peacemaking. And she, of course, in 2017 won the Women Who Shaped the State Award. In 2020, she won the River Rally Hero Award and the Jean and Leslie Douglas Pearl Award in 1920. And without further ado, we want to move to our recorded message from our keynote speaker, Catherine Coleman Flowers.
Hello, everyone. It is very appropriate for me to be here today to speak with you on the anniversary of the birthday of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Dr. King was very instrumental in the civil rights movement, but so was Detroit's history and the history of the civil rights movement in Lowndes County, Alabama. And as we talk about all the issues around climate and climate change, we have to reflect back on that history. And I feel that because of what was accomplished at that particular time with people from across the nation, but in particular with people giving support from Detroit, I think that we can get to where we need to be as it relates to dealing with climate change and having the actions that are necessary to make sure that we have a livable planet. Again, my name is Catherine Coleman Flowers, and I am here to hopefully bring encouragement and a report back from my visit when I went to Glasgow. I was actually there the second week of COP26, and there were numerous meetings that took place. And although I think the outcome was not what everybody expected, but it was the beginning of a conversation about how we make sure that this planet is around for 7 generations to come. And I think it's also very important because while I was in Glasgow, I did meet a lot of people from Detroit, a lot of people that are very, very instrumental in making sure that we have the solutions that are necessary to make sure that there's clean water and clean air, and of course, temperatures that are livable for all of us. I think that this is also an appropriate time because we've seen the impacts of climate change in my area where I am in Alabama. We had on New Year's Day, we had 80-degree weather. The second day we had tornadoes. The third day we had snow on the ground. In Detroit, I know that there have been numerous instances, especially in 2021, where people have dealt with flooding over and over and over again. And also, as you live on one of the largest freshwater sources in the world, it is very, very important that we do not lose those kinds of resources because of greed or because of contamination. And as a result, what happened in COP and what will happen in COP, the COP that's coming up in Egypt this year, I think is going to be very, very important. And what I saw when I was there were people that came from around the world who are very interested in what is happening, not only here in the US, but what's happening in their own countries who are suffering right now from climate change. And they want to see some action taking place. We also saw young people who were there even prior to COP, when COP took place. I got a chance to go to Edinburgh, and there, when the head of the Royal Dutch Oil Company was on stage with a young person who asked him the question, how can you sleep knowing that the actions that you're taking could be taking people's lives? And when he could not answer that question, the young people walked out. There's going to be a need for bold action for all of us. I'm very concerned. I'm concerned because I have a grandson and I want him to have a planet that will support life, that we won't be like we are, as we saw in the movie, Don't Look Up, where people knew that something was happening and they pretended like it didn't happen until it really did happen. But we're at a point where we can do some things to address climate change. And I'm calling upon my Detroit family that in the honor of the memory of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., our new quest is to make sure that we have environmental and climate, and also have the kind of equity that will support life, all life. And at this particular point, we see that it's slowly, that clock is slowly winding down, and we have to come up with the solutions that work. But I still believe that based on what has happened in our past, in terms of fighting for justice and voting rights, we can use that same energy, because a lot of these areas have intersectionality, to fight for the type of climate justice that should exist in Detroit, in Lowndes County, Alabama, throughout the United States and around the world. So I, again, applaud you, and I ask you to join me in action, whether it's writing your members of Congress, whether it's getting out and marching, whether it is actually taking some changes in your own lifestyle to make sure that we can do something to change what is happening in terms of warming this planet up to a point that we can't live. Again, happy Martin Luther King Jr. birthday, and I look forward to continuing working with you. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that recorded message from Catherine Coleman Flowers. And of course, we will continue to follow her work virtually as well as live. And right now, we're going to turn it back over to Aurora Harris. Aurora, I don't know if Wardell is able to deliver. And we also have a closing with Jay Bass's recording video. Aurora.
Hi, Wardell. Are you able to read? Wardell, are you able to read? We still don't hear you.
Yeah, he's still muted.
Can you unmute Wardell?
Be bottom left button.
He's unmuted, but we're still not getting any audio.
Maybe it's his mic on the device.
Wardell, we still can't hear you even though you're unmuted.
Maybe it's his mic, perhaps. Well, we want to apologize for that.
Yeah, Wardell, we're going to have to go to the end of the program. We're sorry, we can't hear you. Thank you, everyone who's been patient with us during these technical difficulties. Our next performer is Jay Bass. He's an artist and entertainer born and raised on the west side of Detroit, Michigan. He is a leader of the activist group Detroit Will Breathe, and he uses his musical talents to propel forward the movement for Black lives. Let's welcome Jay Bass.
Lived in China or even Russia or any totalitarian country. Maybe I could understand some of these illegal injunctions. Maybe I could understand the denial of certain basic First Amendment privileges because they haven't committed themselves to that over there. But somewhere I read of the freedom of assembly. Somewhere I read of the freedom of speech. Somewhere I read of the freedom of press. Somewhere I read that the greatness of America is the right to protest for right. So just as I say we aren't going to let any dogs or water hoses turn us around, we aren't going to let any injunction turn us around.
Jay, hi.
What up?
Can you say your first and last name and spell it for the record?
J Bass, J-A-E-B-A-S-S.
Look directly at me, the camera is not even there, okay? You and your group have criticized the mayor and his administration time and time again. We just have to know.
You stoked?
If you were the mayor of Detroit,
stoked.
what would you do differently?
If I was mayor of my city, I would take care of my city. Make sure everybody good, right? They ain't trying to make it fair in my city. They trying to bury my city. They trying to trap us in the hood. I ain't know these politicians just embarrass my city. But me, I cherish my city. So let me show you what it look like. Everybody here gon' have a good life. If I was mayor, let me show you what it look like. If I was mayor of Detroit, first thing I'm doing is firing Craig, corrupt police chief, high up his man, lying again, freeing all my people from the county and feds. Make sure they get good jobs in their pocket and bread. Make sure everybody got a crib with bridge cars so they never worry about the fridge. If I was mayor of my city, I'm buying everybody's scat pack. Make sure the kids go to school with new backpacks. Imagine having red centers, it ain't not closed. Imagine cruising down the mile with no potholes. Imagine crime going down cause people not broke. And when the crime go down, we don't need cops. So I'm taking all the billions that used to go to the gospel. So putting it on the block just so my people know what's possible. Came a long way and we still got a lot to go. Long as I'm the mayor, we prepare for every obstacle. I'ma make weed recreational, that's nice. Making sure your health insurance cover your whole life. Making sure the city don't cooperate with ICE. Get the fans out the city, we ain't taking their advice. If I got elected, I bet it won't be no drama. Leader of a free world, they respect me like Obama. Matter of fact, I'm a black king, they respect me like T'Challa. If I'm mayor of the city, man, Detroit be like Wakanda. If I was mayor of my city, I would take care of my city. Make sure everybody good, right? They ain't trying to make it fair in my city, they trying to bury my city. They trying to trap us in the hood. Hey, no, these politicians just embarrass my city. Me, I cherish my city. Let me show you what it look like. Everybody here gon' have a good life. If I was mayor, let me show you what it look like.
election year, and more than any other, the Negro will vote for the candidate and the party that will take a forthright, determined, and consistent stand on the civil rights issue.
MRB's what we got.
We gon' let up. Host right here, we fed up. We gon' let up. Host right here, we fed up. We gon' let up. Host right here, we fed up. We gon' let up. Host right here, we fed up. So I'm taking these steps. What's going on? I know that it's wrong. Just taking these breaths. Gotta be strong and keep moving on. We gon' let up. Host right here, we fed up. We gon' let up. Host right here, we fed up. I'm getting sick and tired of being sick and tired. When the hate gon' stop, getting pulled over. I ain't even driving. I just pray to God it ain't a racist cop. If I go to jail, don't even put me in a holding cell. I'm finding out they really trying to trap me in the system, put me in a prison when I'm finding out. Not me, young king, but they trying to do me like a white me. Gotta find me. I ain't hiding. If you looking for me, I'm in my streets with about 3,000 people who ain't leaving till we get some justice. I mean it if you think I'm blessed. The police, you know they can't be trusted, so we gotta stand up for it. The people united will never be divided. Gotta change just for it, gotta plan just for it. Looking at that budget like fuck it, we gon' just demand more stuff. We got a lot of shit that we can do with that. We can get some money to the school with that. Tell me what you wanna do with somebody who's black. We ain't got no option, now we shoot a back. We ain't gon' let up. Host right here, we say what? We ain't gon' let up. Host right here, we say what? We ain't gon' let up. Host right here, we say what? We ain't gon' let up. Hey, host right here. So I'm taking these steps. What's going on? I know that it's wrong. Just taking these breaths. Gotta be strong and keep moving on. Hey, we ain't gon' let up. Host right here, we fed up. We ain't gon' let up. Host right here, we fed up. Look what they did to G. Look what they did to Bree. Look what they did to E. Look what they did to me. Hit me with tear gas, pepper straight to the face, and I couldn't see. Then the next week, DPD ran me over with an SUV. You know that they don't care about us. Anytime that you hear about us, they say that we violent, causing a riot. Okay, let me clear it all up. They don't like it when you telling the truth, and when your skin got that melanin too, they wanna silence that, so they gon' show it to your protest, right? Get shield, looking like damn, with a riot at. You know it's all part of their plan, but God's plan way larger than that. I've been working hard as I can, know what's coming, see it all in advance. Look, you know it's fate when it fall in your hands, and everybody around you won't understand. Look, what it's gonna take is the people together, and you know they hate to see us together. Let's go. We ain't gon' let up. Host right here, we fed up. We ain't gon' let up. Host right here, we fed up. Say what? We ain't gon' let up. Hey, host right here, we fed up. Hey, we ain't gon' let up. Hey, host right here, we fed up. So I'm taking these steps. What's going on? I know it is wrong. Just taking these steps. Gotta be strong and keep moving on. Say what? We ain't gon' let up. Host right here, we fed up. Hey, we ain't gon' let up. Host right here, we fed up. Martin Luther King ain't let up. He spent his whole life fighting for this. So I spent my whole life fighting for this. Black power.
All right. Such a wonderful media presentation and video from Jay Bass. Let's give it up for him and the crew. And I like to, let's just go around to our hosts and everyone to see if we have any last remarks. We'd like to thank everyone who joined us today and thank all of our poets, guests, and musicians. And again, we apologize to those who were having technical difficulties. We hope that we'll be able to get some recordings of their performances to show later. Abiomi.
Yes, I want to thank you, Aurora, for all your work and also for co-hosting the program and doing a lot of the organizing work. All members of the Detroit MLK Committee, Dorothy Aldrich, of course, the chairperson of the MLK Committee. This program was recorded. It can be shared via Facebook and Zoom. We're going to try to get the stream uploaded to YouTube as well, so it can be circulated. So thank you once again for attending. Long live the legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., the civil rights movement, the environmental movement, the anti-war movement, and the struggle for political empowerment. Thank you once again on behalf of the Detroit MLK Planning Committee for this 19th annual virtual Detroit MLK Day rally. And
I just
webinar.
want to quickly personally go down the list of people to thank everyone by name. I'd like to thank both of our interpreters who was doing the American Sign Language today. One Single Rose, the acknowledgement of the land by Sarah Torres, Sylvia Arundo, Wardell Montgomery for being present, Lloyd Simpson, the folks who spoke on the Line 5 struggle, Toya from the Charlevoix Villages Association, Reverend Pinkney, Joe Kidd and Sheila Burke, Yasmin from the Palestinian Youth Movement, Jesus Rodriguez Espinoza, Orinoco Tribune and Venezuela, and Frank Hammer for the translation, B. Ward Poetry, John Kelly with his presentation on Bloody Sunday all the way from Ireland, Daryl Jordan from EMEAC, the Alan Denard Trio, the anti-war, anti-imperialist talk from Reverend Bill Wiley Kellerman, Iman Saleh from the Yemeni Liberation Movement, Bilal Poet, Jorge Parra for the General Motors of Columbia Workers, Frank Hammer, and Yvonne, our retiree who gave the retiree proposal from Daria and Moratorium Now, our keynote speaker all the way from Lowndes County, Catherine Flowers, and once again, Jay Bass. And thank you again to the committee and everyone else who made this possible. Thank you to all the attendees. Abiomi, do you have?
Okay, that's